My new book is about a family who ends up in Australia, but they are British and they are on St Helena when Napoleon arrives, and he ends up staying in their summer house, which is to the side of their garden and on a little knoll. And he stays there 10 weeks. By then, he's won them over because he's a very playful fellow, and he has, as we know, he has charisma. And in any case, they are rather liberal-minded people, and the family ended up smuggling letters and financial instruments for him, and were destroyed by the process. They had to leave the island in the end. They lived under a shadow in Britain for 7 years until the father, they lived under a shadow in Britain for 5 years until the father did the government a favour, signed an affidavit saying he thought Napoleon had been treated well, and he was given a job, a government job. Well, the government job was his first colonial treasurer of New South Wales. So the family came to Australia. But the pressure of their encounter with Napoleon and their subsequent disgrace brought them unstuck in Australia too, so that one can say this family never recovered from their closeness over 3 years to Napoleon. One of the children, the one who was 13 years old when she first met Napoleon on the island, wrote a memoir of her association with Napoleon, and that's what got me started. I'm not the first one to encounter this by now obscure journal, although it was a bestseller in its day, but that's what got me going. I went to an exhibit at the National Gallery of Victoria one rainy day when I had an hour free in a book tour. And I went with the publicist and saw this exhibit of Napoleonica, I think that's what you call it. And amongst some of the items were some items from a place in the Mornington Peninsula called the Briars, an Australian house. And that Australian house was the Balcombe house. And that's what made me aware that there was a journal out there. I tracked down the journal. And there's other material. Everyone who met Napoleon wrote about it. So he's Dr. Barry O'Mara, a vocal Irishman who's a major character in the book. He wrote a 2-volume book, bestseller, on his association with Napoleon as well. And it was one of the best sellers of the early 1820s. But he too had been disgraced by being too close to Napoleon. Yes, I'm not a Napoleon freak. It's interesting about Napoleon, he's got both, a lot of conservatives love him, and a lot of Dame Mabel Brooks of Melbourne, a successor of the Balcombe family, actually bought what's left of the Briars on St Helena and gave it to the French government. So there's a little bit of St Helena that is forever France. So I'm not like her, I'm not a fanatic, but I am, having been raised in remote Australia we're encouraged to think about as remote. I'm always fascinated when you find out that great episodes of European history are not as far removed as we think. They're 1 degree of separation. Some years ago I wrote a book about the Russian Revolution because there was a revolutionist in Brisbane who ended up a major cabinet member of the first Bolshevik government in 1917. I wrote a book called The People's Train about this, and I was fascinated by the idea, as I said, of ordinary people getting too close to a great flame. And in those days, people believed he was a great flame too. And yet he played hide and seek and blind man's buff with the Balcombe kids, and it is he was a very strange phenomenon. I think his multifaceted personality make him infinitely more interesting than someone like Hitler or Stalin.